American-made anime. That's a term I've always found contention with. It never really made sense to me. How can you have an anime made in America when anime has always been an animated show produced in Japan that maintains a certain art style? Now, with that in mind, it is quite obvious to see the impact that anime has had on Western cartoons and movies. Whether it's in character design, storytelling, or art style, anime has clearly had an influence on our creators stateside. So today, I'd like to go into my top 5 favorite anime-influenced cartoons. Now, keep in mind, this is my top 5. Odds are we have very different tastes. If a show that you like doesn't appear here, it means one of 3 things. I liked it, but it didn't make the cut. I thought it sucked. Or I just haven't seen it yet. So as you watch the video, please keep an open mind, and you're already mad, aren't you? Son of a...
Who is the maid with the buttercup hair, who sleeps on moonbeams and dances on air?
Talk to anyone who grew up watching Toonami in the 90s and they'll tell you that one of their favorite shows to watch was Dragon Ball Z. What they probably won't tell you is that how before they watched this show, they'd have to sit through this other show called Sailor Moon. And even less will tell you how much they enjoyed it. It's needless to say that Sailor Moon is one of the pillars that lay the foundation for anime to grow in the West, as it popularized the magical girl genre. The show is basically Power Rangers in female form, and it was amazing. I ate this thing up like nobody's business when I was a kid, and I couldn't be happier that I watched it at such a young age. Fast forward about 20 years and you get Star versus the Forces of Evil, which is greatly influenced by Sailor Moon as well as Revolutionary Girl Utena. The show revolves around our heroine Star Butterfly, an overly energetic and hyperactive princess from the magical land of Muni, as well as heir to the throne. One of the first things you'll notice is, unlike most heroines in the magical girl genre who are forced into confrontation, Star actively seeks it out, stating that some of her favorite things to do include fighting monsters and taming wild unicorns. As tradition dictates, she is given the royal family heirloom, a magic wand, on her 14th birthday, which is quickly revealed to be a bad idea because she proceeds to set everything on fire. As a second to last resort, the real last resort being St. Olga's Reform School for Wayward Princesses,
Not St. Olga's!
her parents sent her to Earth for some much needed training. I hope you all have some fireproof suits, cause I don't know about you, but if she can set a freaking rainbow on fire, then I'm not taking any chances. Upon arriving and being accepted by the school, she gets assigned a guide to make sure she doesn't get into too much trouble, and that guide happens to be the safest person in school, Marco Diaz. Together, these two go on adventures large and small as they take down villains large and small, making wacky and clever jokes along the way. At its core, Star vs. the Forces of Evil is a slice-of-life comedy, one of my more favorite genres. And that's not to say that it's all comedy all the time. There is a healthy dose of action sprinkled in, and you can easily see the dedication and passion that went into making it. The show also has great character development and some of the most suspenseful sequences I've seen in a long time that get you feeling all sorts of things, as well as diving into some pretty mature and social themes, which is typical of a magical girl show. With an excellent core voice cast alongside talents like Alan Tudyk, Jeffrey Tambor, and Michael C. Hall, this is a show that is definitely worth watching. I've been a fan of Rooster Teeth since my middle school days. In fact, the first thing I ever watched by them was their flagship show, Red vs. Blue, which has only gotten better as time's gone on. Now, they would go on to make other shows like Achievement Hunters and that one based off The Sims 2 for PC, I think. Honestly, that show was so forgettable that I only just remembered it was a thing when writing this video. Now, as the years went by, they would later meet and hire on Monty Ohm to oversee the animation process for later Red vs. Blue seasons, specifically for Reconstruction, Recreation, and Revelations. It was during the production of Season 10 that Monty went to RVB creator Bernie Burns to see if they could produce a brainchild of his, involving color-coded character names and designs, and thus Ruby was born. This one represents a great deal of confusion for me. Other than the fact that it was made in America, Ruby, by any other metric, would be considered an anime, even going as far as to get Funimation voice actors on the show as early as Season 3. In fact, as of right now, it's the only show in my anime collection for those very reasons. Ruby takes a lot of influence from shonen in general, following almost every key trope required of that genre, and the overall feel of the show is that of a video game that I desperately want to play. I'll admit that in the beginning I wasn't too impressed by it, seeing as the only things it really had going for it were the cel-shaded anime art style, musical score, and stellar fight choreography. The voice acting was only slightly above par, being downright cringy at times.
Aura is the manifestation of our soul. It bears our burdens and shields our hearts.
Most locations looked generic and uninspired, the lip syncing was plain awful,
You were worth every cent. Truly you were.
and outside of fighting, the animation felt stiff and robotic. However, as the show continued and the world expanded, nearly every, if not all, of these issues were fixed, with the end of Season 1 being the first real sign of potential the show had, and every new installment since then has helped it to expand upon pre-existing and new characters, as well as the world at large, as it continues to deepen its lore, making it that much more enjoyable. It even managed to pull at my heartstrings quite a few times before the end of Season 3. They achieved this by showcasing more of the characters' flaws, fleshing out their backstories, and having them learn not just from their own past, but from each other's as well. A perfect example of this actually comes from the end of Season 1 as they begin to build the finale. In this scene, both Blake and Weiss state their opinions on the White Fang, a notorious terrorist organization made entirely of fauna, a human-animal hybrid species in the world, in which Weiss claims they are nothing more than criminals while Blake states that they are simply misguided. The argument eventually leads to Weiss revealing that members of her family have been killed due to the violence of the White Fang, and Blake accidentally lets slip that she too was a fauna who was once a member of the White Fang. Fearing judgment from this revelation, she chooses to run from the room. What this confrontation does is it forces both parties to remove their blinders and makes them reconsider their respective worldviews and eventually change their minds on a few things, as seen at the end of Season 1. For Weiss, this means being far less prejudicial, and for Blake, it means trusting more in not only her team, but in humans. There are more examples to pull from, but honestly I could talk about this for hours, so I'll end it with this. If you're a fan of shonen anime, then give the show a try. You might just enjoy it.
It all became so lovely. Those bluest skies above me. Those funny feelings I had never felt before I met you.
It took me a long time to finally get around to watching Steven Universe, about 3 years after it premiered to be exact. In the beginning, I flat out refused to watch it because it looked like another one of those shows filled with random humor for the sake of being random, much like that of Teen Titans Go, which I f***ing hate. After it was on the air for about a year and a half, I started hearing that it was actually more than a half-decent show, with it appearing on places like YouTube and my Facebook page, and other places that I frequently visit. Now, seeing all this did finally get me interested in watching the show, but there was still just one small problem: the fan base.
That's the whole
What you
story.
doing? Just watching some Steven Universe.
Are
You know,
okay.
I never really did like this show.
Hang on a sec. Bismuth?
Now look, I know it's not fair to judge a show by its fans, but it's because of how vicious Steven Universe's fan base can get that I hadn't seen a full episode till around the tail end of 2016. And I can honestly say that I'm glad I waited so long until I did. Had I watched the show when it first premiered, I would have dropped it in a heartbeat, claiming it to be no more than the humorless random garbage that it looked to be. Like with Ruby, Season 1 is a slow starter, however it is completely necessary to the story as a whole, as most of the groundwork for the overall narrative is clearly laid out in this first season. So much so, in fact, that I fully believe that the story was already finished in Rebecca Sugar's head, and the evidence for this is everywhere. From the two great Diamond Authority logos, one with a pink diamond and one without, to Garnet being revealed as a fusion for the first time and everything consistent with that in past episodes, all the way to Bismuth. No joke here, Bismuth was completely 100% planned from the start, with her bubble gem being shown in Lion's Mane in episode 35 as evidence, but the character herself not making her first appearance till episode 98. That is a 63 episode difference as well as a 2-season gap. Now that is what I call impressive. Similar to Star vs. the Forces of Evil, Steven Universe pulls a great deal of influence from Sailor Moon and Revolutionary Girl Utena, and also, like Star, it tends to tackle more mature themes and social issues. However, Steven Universe takes it a step further, with its most impressive accomplishment being that of showcasing a healthy, gay relationship with Ruby and Sapphire, as well as the one-sided relationship with Pearl and Rose, showing just how hurtful a situation like that can be without it feeling forced or unnatural, unlike another show I know. Seriously though, when Ruby proposed to Sapphire, I was completely giddy and totally did not cry at all! What the? How the hell did that get in here? Someone get my editor on the phone!
When there's trouble, you know who to call. Teen Titans. From their tower, they can see it all. Teen Titans.
As you can probably tell by now, I am a huge fan of comic book TV shows and movies. In fact, some of my earliest memories involve me watching those old Superman cartoons from the 40s, Justice Friends from the 70s, and Batman the Animated Series from the 90s. So it should come as no surprise that I would naturally be drawn to a show like Teen Titans. This one's a little tough for me to pin down, as it seems to borrow from everyone, with the closest thing to it being Cyborg 009, and maybe a little bit of Fooly Cooly. Honestly, on a surface level, it appears that most of the influence comes from the art itself, as the animation style seems to be a mix of classic anime and the DC animation style used in shows like Justice League and Batman Beyond. But that's not its only source, as it also draws heavy inspiration from anime storytelling with its clear seasonal narrative through lines. Another thing to mention is that Teen Titans was not afraid to put character arcs in its story. On the contrary, it thrives in it. You can see this as early as episode 2, with Starfire overcoming her inferiority complex towards her older sister, or Terra in season 2 as she struggles with making friends out of the fear that they might turn on her, only for her to go and do that very thing herself, and then to redeem herself by sacrificing herself in order to stop a volcanic eruption from under a city. God damn, I love this show! That's not to say that Teen Titans is the only one on this list to have character arcs, but it is the first cartoon show I remember utilizing it outside of anime, so it gets massive points for that. Add to that one of the most interesting and menacing villains I've seen in the form of Slade, and have him be voiced by Ron Mothering Perlman, and you've got a show that I will gladly waste hours of my life watching. On top of that, it boasts stellar animation. Not only is it fluid, but you can feel the weight behind every punch, kick, and blast, as well as the damage that it inflicts. This show may have been intended for 6 to 11-year-olds, but its themes of loyalty, friendship, and trust were so well executed that it drew in a much larger crowd than it initially intended. So much so that to this day, 12 years after the original ending of the show, fans are still begging for a season 6. And you know what? I'm one of them.
You hear that, Cartoon Network? We want a real season 6. Not this Teen Titans Joe wearing flicking drinking motherfucking piece of cartoon vomit you're trying to shove down our throats. I swear to God, if that teaser at the end of that movie, if you can even call it a movie, was just you trolling us, I'm gonna hunt each and every one of you down and...
Water. Earth. Fire. Air.
I mean, what were you expecting, really? Yes, as cliche as it may be, Avatar: The Last Airbender is my number one. It also happens to be the one that took me the longest time to finally get around to watching. You see, when this show was airing, it was when I started to get super into anime, and as a result, I tended to avoid Western cartoons. Not because I didn't want to watch those shows, but because I was too preoccupied with anime. I mean, look here. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure why I didn't watch it sooner, seeing as it has everything that I like in a show. A fantastical world with rich and deep lore? Check. An immensely flawed yet highly relatable main character? Check. A shipping war involving the obvious pairing that I like and the fan favorite pairing everyone else likes? Check. A group of main and side characters that learn and grow stronger due to experience and past mistakes? Check. Strong and well-balanced female characters? Oh, check, check, and triple check. Throw all that into what basically boils down to PG World War II, and you have what is most likely my favorite Western cartoon to this day. If I had to make a guess as to why I didn't watch it, I would say it was probably because everyone was saying how much of a great show it was, but not that it was just a great show, but a great anime as well. How could you possibly call an American-made show, despite it obviously being inspired by anime, actual anime? I was offended, so much so that I avoided watching the show for a solid year and some change, as well as challenging anyone who dare call Avatar anime. Yeah, I was kind of a dick back then. The moment I stopped hating the show, as well as the first time I felt a sense of regret for avoiding it, came when I stumbled across a trailer for the episode, The Cave of Two Lovers. Now, as someone who at this point had never seen a full episode of Avatar, I was immediately interested in the idea of a possible pairing between Aang and Katara, and trust me, I'm a guy who loves his romance in anime, so I decided to give the episode a watch. Now, most of you are probably thinking that this is the moment that turned me into an Avatar fan, and you know what? You're wrong. Nope, I am sorry. You're just wrong. While I did enjoy the episode, the show itself did not prove to be as great as everyone was telling me it was. Now, don't get the wrong idea. I did watch a few more episodes, but, maybe 2 or 3. Hell, a friend of mine even had me sit down to watch the 4-episode season finale, and I still wasn't impressed. Except for the awesome animation. It wasn't until I was in college that I finally decided to give Avatar one final chance, so I started from episode 1 and 4 days later I binge watched the entire series. It's no wonder I didn't get hooked sooner. With every episode building off what the previous one set up, it would be incredibly difficult for any newcomer to jump in, especially after season 1. Yes, the intro gives you the basic story explanation, but that can only do so much. It can't fully tell you the motivations and reasoning behind characters' actions in later episodes. Starting from the beginning is so important, in fact, that by the time I got back to the Cave of Two Lovers, the whole episode had a new level of tension that it lacked in my first viewing because I hadn't seen any of the past episodes that set up said tension. So yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender is absolutely amazing. How could you possibly make a show like that any better? By giving it one of the best sequels of all time, that's how. The Legend of Korra takes everything that made The Last Airbender great and expands upon it immensely, while at the same time addressing more mature themes than The Last Airbender, with every new season representing a new hurdle for Korra to overcome, be it internal or external. To be fair though, that is mostly due to the fact that it was made with an older demographic in mind. So as it turns out, my number one isn't actually Avatar: The Last Airbender, but instead the Avatar series as a whole. While I know that they are two separate shows, to me Korra always felt like a continuation of The Last Airbender, so it's more like they're one and the same. And if you want to complain about that, fine, go ahead, I won't stop you, but you're not going to change my mind. Anime has always been a great source of joy and inspiration for me, and I am more than happy to see that it's been the same for others. Now, once again, I don't consider any of the shows that I've listed here today to be real anime, but it is encouraging to see the kind of impact they've had on us, not only as creators, but as a community. While I and others like me don't see shows like these to be anime, their presence and validity as cosplay at anime conventions like AWA has never been questioned. They've always been seen as one of the full, despite not being what I consider to be true anime, and that is something to be proud of. With great shows like Avatar and Teen Titans behind us, as well as other shows like Star and Steven Universe still airing, the future for more shows like them seems bright, and I for one can't wait to see what comes next. Hello again, and thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. If you liked what you saw, please let me know by leaving a like and subscribing. Also, if you want to see more top whatever videos like this in the future, please let me know what kinds to do in the comments below on my Facebook or on my Twitter. Links will be in the description box. And hey, if you want to leave your own top 5 for me or others to see, please feel free to do so. I'll probably look at them eventually, but just so you know, I'm more than likely going to disagree with you. But, that's the beauty of opinions. We can all have them and still be friends. Right? Right?